right, we will have roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Dollison,
Here.
Commissioner Mercer. Here. Commissioner Dantzler,
He's here somewhere and I think just stepped away.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I was stopped walking the
walked in.
building.
Oh, okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Yates,
Here.
and Mayor Birdsong.
Here. All right, we'll have invocation by Dr. Steve Neckley. Pledge of Allegiance. Then we have a couple of proclamations.
Mr. Mayor, on that, just real quick on the proclamations, the first one, that is a student, I believe of Winter Haven High School, a Cambridge student who is, was elected governor of Girls State. And as I understand, that's the first governor that we've had from our area for Girls State. So it's a pretty impressive young lady based upon the proclamation. The MLK proclamation will be accepted by members of the steering committee, and we'll give you an update on some of the festivities for MLK Unity Week during that. The Arbor Day proclamation is, that's one we do annually, and we'll provide some information that evening on our tree giveaway that we'll be doing. And then the Excellence in Action Impact Awards. Those are, you may recall, last year we started this process of recognizing some just outstanding initiatives within the organization that pertain to our strategic pillars, and we will make those presentations that evening. And then the strategic plan presentation for environmental stewardship, we have that queued up once we're done with the workshop this evening with Tanya Ayers and Brittany Hart.
Okay. All right. We don't have any developments of notes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I wanted to ask a question, if I might,
Okay.
as it relates to proclamations. And I know we had this discussion a while back concerning proclamations, and I guess guidelines relative to proclamations, or are there any guidelines? And if so, what are they? And I'm just curious by that because I know we have a lot of them. Some of them are how would you say, I guess, initiated in various ways for either major or minor things. So I'm kind of like, where does this kind of, is there somewhere that we can kind of get some guideline to that situation? Because I'm fearful that, if we're going to proclamate everything, that as soon as you decide you won't give a proclamation to something, you're going to have a major problem.
Can I answer that?
Certainly, it's your meeting.
Let me ask the Lord get the short of it. There is a statement in the charter that basically gives the mayor the authority to approve or disapprove proclamations. So all of the requests come to me, and before they're officially accepted, I review and give yay or nay as to whether or not to present it, to do it. So we've had this discussion before you were on here. We've had the discussion about the proclamations, and it just falls on the shoulders of the mayor.
And for further context, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, may I make just a few comments or observations? Proclamations are ceremonial only in nature, and they're not intended to be or reflect official actions of this body by the city commission. Therefore, the mayor, as is the charters denotes, is vested with the ceremonial authority regarding proclamations. Proclamations are, as you all note, are signed only by the mayor. They are not voted on by you all as a body. They are presented in public session or not. They may be presented at a funeral. They may be presented at at an appropriate spot, but they are not considered official actions of the city commission. And in that regard, although that may not feel intuitive, it probably behooves us not to get too down in the weeds in terms of trying to set up parameters for these matters, because that's where you get into potentially the issues of, well, this is an official city position, and then we have to adhere to it. And that's where you get into situation where this person's not going to get one, this one is. I think there's probably some benefit to maintaining, and it's consistent with our charter, that it is in the purview of the mayor. Now, if a commissioner isn't happy with what the mayor is or isn't doing,
acknowledgement, because regardless, it's done here in the forum of the city. And so it gives the appearance that the city is in, not necessarily in all agreement, but recognizing that for sure, that if a commissioner says, hey, yeah, you have the preview to do that, but do I have to be in agreement with it if I don't agree with, you doing that? So, and then how would that play itself out? It's just other than you saying, hey, I don't agree with it and move on, which would it amount to, I guess.
I tell you what, I agree with you. I'm glad we're having this discussion, because when I was the mayor, I struggled with this as well. And for a couple of years, I tried to get everybody to view the proclamations before we approved them. And in other words, I'd have Vanessa send them to everybody, because Mr. Birdsong's right. He gets it. He gets the petition, and then we either sign it or we don't. And I think, and to John's point too, I don't know how deep we want to go in the weeds on this thing, but I do think by inference, when the mayor signs a proclamation and reads it, it's all of us doing it. Even though on some of the more controversial ones, like the LGBTQ, I made it very known that I was going to sign that, and I would take the heat if anybody didn't want to participate in that. That's fine. And I just think we as a body ought to have that right. If we want to disagree with a proclamation, we need to have some sort of venue, whether we vote online or, John said you really can't vote against it other than because we don't ever vote on these proclamations.
not an action of the city commission.
Yeah. So, but we could potentially weigh in electronically. I mean, I counted it when I was mayor. We did like 40 proclamations in 1 year. We'd all have to proactively vote when these proclamations come in, or let the mayor know, I don't want to be part of this. And that's fine. That is the only way I know to protest. Otherwise, mayor's right. It's his prerogative to sign these or not.
Yeah, and
I think if we go beyond what's stated in the charter, then we're negating what's in the charter. And so in order to negate the charter, we would need to have a revision to the charter.
I agree.
Yes. And I think former mayor, I always call you Mayor Dantzler, but Commissioner Dantzler, I think your thought is an admirable one. I like the concept of it, but it just doesn't work for us because we're a sunshine body. And so you can't really be doing an electronic vote or doing something outside the purview of a noticed meeting. So your opportunity to say I'm not in support of something that's being proclaimed would be at a meeting. If you were so inclined to make that statement, you certainly are free to do so.
So you're saying that if Vanessa sends all 5 of us a proclamation and we just answer back yes or no, that would be a violation of sunshine?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Polling.
I wouldn't recommend that.
That'd be polling.
Yeah, it would, she would be soliciting your view on an issue outside the scope of an open meeting, and I just don't think that would be a good thing to do. It would be one thing for her to ask you, "Are you going to be going to the Ridge League of Cities dinner?" That's different. That's not official business. That's not something that's an issue or a matter of the commission.
Well, when we
For
tried it
city.
for a couple of years, it didn't work, so it's a
Yeah.
moot point anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think
It's
what
not
you-
gonna work.
What you
'Cause-
could do is if there was advanced notice of what those proclamations are, and if it was the mayor's prerogative to share with the commission in a meeting prior to the meeting at which said proclamation would be coming forward. Hey, next month, we're going to have a proclamation for, Public Works Month. Does anybody have any heartburn with that coming forward? You could do it in a meeting ahead of time if those were known. Sometimes they're not always known that far in
Yeah.
advance.
Somebody
So
dies,
that's the-
whatever.
Yeah.
And I also think by doing that, you're setting yourself up as the
Yeah.
mayor for, okay, 4 of you don't like it, but I'm doing it. Because guess what? I'm the mayor and I've decided that this is appropriate to be done.
And that's
so,
happened,
I
and that's
mean,
happened, and that's happened. That's
And I think I just don't think that's a good recipe for constructive collegiality amongst the body.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's my concern, because that has happened in other places.
Yeah.
And I think that we could be on a collision course with something like that. It depends on who's elected to serve.
Right, correct. That's why it's
Bottom
important
line.
to vote wisely when you vote on the mayor.
I hear you. Thank you, sir.
All right, you're welcome. So then we have the minutes and then comments from the audience and then the reorganization of the commission, liaison assignments.
And we will have, be prepared if need be to have ballots that evening for the election of mayor and mayor pro tem. And we will, I believe it's already been presented, but it's in your packet is the current liaison assignments. In case any of you have interest in changing any of your positions, you can get a kind of lay of the land of what everybody has is noted in there.
This might be a good time to talk about that liaison. Can we talk about that now? I mean, does anybody want to
certainly
change?
can.
or-
Absolutely.
Anybody have any problems? I don't, but I'm just throwing it out there.
You said, where's the list?
It's if you go to your in Granicus to your I legislate, it's the attachment shown with that agenda item 10G.
Didn't we need didn't we need another alternate for something that we had?
We added a position. We gained a position on the TPO.
That's right.
And so right now our TPO membership is Mayor Birdsong, Mayor Pro Tem Yates, and Commissioner Mercer.
Got it. Okay.
And the alternate, I'm looking on here. Eric, can you help me out? Here it is. The alternate is Cliff Dawson. And we removed, it's noted in there, Mayor Pro Tem Yates was a liaison to the Ritz Theater, but with that board basically dissolving when the city took over, there's not an appointment to that anymore.
I'm good with mine. If anybody else wants one of my committees, you can have it.
I'm good with that.
I'm just teasing. No, we're good. I'm happy. I don't need to change anything. Unless somebody else wants to change.
Any changes?
Not unless somebody wants one of the pension boards.
Did such a good job of that.
Spent almost a whole day there.
Such an expert.
Anybody else? Good. So everybody's good,
I am.
right?
Now, some of those could change if you have a change in the officers. If the mayor changes, some of those could change as the mayor's representation to certain boards, but we'll address that based upon the reorganization.
All right. Are we ready for the consent agenda?
Ready to present if, okay to move forward? Ready to move forward on that, on the consent?
Yes, yes.
So the first item is the approval of basically data center cage and cabinet space with IF&D Data Suites LLC, which is Inland Fiber. This is part of our infrastructure for housing technology critical assets in a safe and secure facility with the necessary redundancies to protect us. We're actually expanding and getting a little bit larger capacity within that secured area. This is a lease agreement for 10 years that begins this fiscal year at an annual cost of $37,500, which we have within our internal service fund dedicated for this, and it increases by 3% each year. So this is really just taking all of our servers that are housed there and being able to expand those as need be and have the growth that we need as our cyber and our technology components continue to expand.
All right.
Item 11B is for travel and training. This is for Mayor Pro Tem Yates to attend the Florida League of Cities Federal Action Strike Team for the Fast Fly-In February 3rd through 6th in Washington, D.C. 10C is for Mayor Birdsong to attend the Florida Regional Councils Association Policy Board meeting, which is he attends on behalf of the Central Florida Regional Planning Council. That will take place, I believe, tomorrow and Friday in Tallahassee. And so this will be a ratification after the fact because we didn't get the information far enough in advance and with only one meeting in December. Item 11D and 11E, these are both two developers agreements that you have seen before that are coming before you. These have gone through the Downtown CRA Advisory Committee. I did see Ms. Skubna is here and as a member of that committee. Angie is here as well, can answer questions if need be. But the first one is with Derek McWaters. This is for residential housing TIF rebate at the $10,000 maximum rebate per unit. This is for a project that is off of 7th Street Southwest at Avenue N, kind of just to the west of the cemetery. Yes, thank you. I'm drawing a blank this evening. But that has gone through the CRA Advisory Committee and the CRA Board and now comes to the City Commission for City Commission approval. That's Oak Lawn Cemetery. That's what I was stuck on. The other item is an amendment to it's the second amendment to the agreement, the developers agreement we have with the Jade, which is the former Holiday Inn. As we explained during the CRA board, they are expanding the number of units from 211 to 238. So there's an additional 27 units and want to be able to apply that incentive that is per unit to the final count of 238. And both of those were approved by the CRA board. I do want to note there was a third agreement that we had a significant amount of discussion on during the CRA board. That was for the Hamilton on Central. That was for, I believe it was 81 attainable housing units. That developers agreement was approved by the CRA Downtown Advisory Committee and the CRA board. We had intended to bring that forward. However, we have been told that that property is no longer under contract. There was a need to get some of a level of an extension on the acquisition of that, and that resulted in some additional costs that have caused that contract to basically dissolve in the process. So that project will not be moving forward as presented, not because of anything with the incentives or from the city standpoint, but more so the dealings between the buyer and the seller on that. So if something happens with that project, if somebody else puts it under contract, or if that existing developer reacquires it under contract, then we'll go through the process of looking at a new development agreement, because certainly the parameters of that change with that. So From our standpoint, there's no point in us bringing forward a development agreement for which there is not a property under contract. That just puts a piece of paper out there floating in the wind that nothing will ever come to as the situation stands today. So we're just letting that one kind of fall to the wayside and not move forward, and we'll see where the chips fall down the road if somebody else acquires that property. And we will report that back to the CRA Advisory Committee as well as to the full CRA board at their next meetings. Item 11F, this is the Harmony Master Lift Station. This is a change order in the amount of $92,523.16. This is to address some infrastructure pieces of that project. Overall, this project is about an $8 million project. So this is a relatively minor change order at the end of the day, but it addresses pump base support changes, some access hatches with safety grading, some control systems, newly added 12-inch force main, and extended life interior wet well coating. So it's just some of the construction elements, the materials and design features that need to be incorporated. The 11G is an amendment to an existing agreement with Wright Pierce, Inc. So this is tied into our septic to sewer project number 6A, north and south, which is up off of US 17 on the eastern side of Lake Hartridge. This amendment expands the scope of Wright Pierce to include final design documents and technical specifications, bidding and pre-construction services, construction phase support, inspections and project closeout, and assistance with permitting. The cost associated with this work is $133,150, and that is accounted for within the project budget for the septic to sewer remediation area 6A project. So these are just additional services from the engineer of record as we're getting ready to take this to final design, get it out to bid, actually build it, and all the permitting that goes with it. So some ancillary services that we typically add in as we move forward with the project. And then 11H, we have a number of vehicles within the police department that over the years have been damaged in accidents, and whether those are in pursuits or in incidences that we're responding to. Those vehicles typically have a replacement fund set up for each one of them. So each year we've been setting aside money to replace those. All 5 of those vehicles are beyond repair and cannot be put back into service. So we're recommending to take some of the funding from those 5 vehicles that is in reserve and using it to purchase 3 new vehicles. And that will, again, help us ensure that our police operations, that we're properly equipped to meet the needs of the community. So that's not a new expense. That's just redirecting reserves for totaled out vehicles to purchase 3 of the new Interceptors.
All right. Resolutions.
So you have 2 resolutions, and Mayor, if you'll give me a little latitude, I'm going to ask for permission to add a 3rd one, and I'll explain that once I go through the first 2. The first one is for it's a request by 4Star. So this is the group that is developing Harmony on Lake Eloise, and this is for phase 4. It's shown on your screens there. This is going to be in the northwestern section of that development. If you've driven through there, you see where a lot of the houses are on the west side of Lake Eloise Drive. This is going to be from where those houses are being constructed today up to the corner of Shell Road. This is about a 57.25 acre subdivision tract. It will contain 322 building lots and 12 common lots. All of the drainage conveyances and stormwater management areas within this will be maintained and owned by the CDD. There is a performance bond in the amount of almost $2 million that's been submitted to the city to cover the cost of the remaining infrastructure items, which include the earthwork, sanitary sewer, potable water, reuse water, stormwater management, paving, and the engineering certification. So when this is all built out, just to give some reference to it in terms of taxable values, we estimate the built out lot values at $300,000 per lot. And based upon the number of units, a taxable value of about $96.6 million that will generate about $637,000 in ad valorem revenues per year. The second resolution is a request by VMAR Development or VMAR DEV LLC, which is the Villamar project. This is for phase 7. So again, looking at the map, you can see the blue outline. To the bottom of that blue outline is the Thompson Nursery Road realignment that would flow through there off of Thompson Nursery Road down towards the railroad tracks that will eventually cross the tracks and make its way out to Winter Lake Road. So this is development on the north side of that is presently undeveloped. This accounts for a 108.7 acre subdivision area. Would contain 393 building lots and 7 common lots. All the internal roadways of this development will be dedicated to the Villamar CDD. All the water reuse and sewer will be owned and maintained by the city. All the drainage conveyances, again, roadways, street lighting will be the CDDs. They have also submitted a performance bond for their outstanding items in the amount of $391,435. Some of what needs to be completed there includes remaining earthwork, sanitary sewer, potable water, stormwater management work, and then again, the engineering certification. Again, using that taxable value of $300,000 per lot, we estimate the taxable value for this development to be about $118 million that will generate about $777,000 per year in ad valorem revenues. And this is all part of the being developed under the PUD Ordinance 02172. The other item, Mr. Mayor, that I would like to share with you this evening, if the commission is okay with me adding to this, we have been working feverishly on this through the holidays and really up until 5 o'clock today to make this happen. It is a resolution. It would be number 25-05. This is from WHIP 6 QOZB LLC. I can't tell you what all that stands for. Maybe Eric or Bruce can. But this is a final plat approval request for Intermodal Corporate Park Phase 3. So this is, you've heard Bruce Lyon with the Winter Haven EDC, who's here with us this evening, talk about Project Ray. This is a large-scale warehousing site to be developed inside the ILC that we just recently submitted an application with your authorization to Florida Commerce to try and get funding for a rail spur to service this property. This is a 56.96 acre tract. It's located generally in the southeast corner of Logistics Parkway and Intermodal Drive. So if you're familiar with where, Bruce, I'm going to say where the Coca-Cola operations are, this is going to be due south of that on the opposite side of Intermodal Drive in there. And so they're subdividing this vacant piece of land out there to account for 2 stormwater ponds that will be owned by TRAT Properties that owns all of the land out there, and then they'll be selling off a large portion of that land for the Project Ray development site. So in order to be able to do that, we'd like to be able to expedite this. As I said, we've been working with Jim Ford and TRAT Properties as well as their attorney Tim Campbell for some time. So, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, if you are, with your blessing, I will have this added to the Granicus package first thing in the morning. We just have to make one small adjustment to the fact sheet and the attachments, but it is ready to go. If you're okay with that.
Okay. You're okay with it? Yeah.
Okay. And I apologize. It's not my desire to ever push something through this late. We like to get that agenda out, but recognizing the economic impact that this can have for our community, we want to try and be as helpful as we possibly can. The other item, ordinances, first reading. So this is an annexation of 4 parcels. This is a request by Gain, Inc. They're requesting the city commission annex 4 parcels totaling 93.45 acres located just off of Old Bartow Lake Wales Road, east of McLean Road, and west of Gary Street. They're seeking this annexation for the purpose of obtaining city utilities for the future development of the site. Can you advance one, Katrina? I believe there's a site map. So you can see where County Road 653 is on the left side of your screen. The farthest west parcel there to the left, that is the new school on the west side of County Road 653. So go back to the opposite side if you could there, Eric, or whoever's driving, and show where the school is to give some frame of reference. Okay, so that's the school. The development that Reggie Baxter did is what you see all platted within there, and you can see what's highlighted in red is this annexation request. This the current value of this subject property is relatively low, $11,483. So certainly that will, the taxable benefit in terms of revenue will certainly increase once that's developed. And so we're recommending approval of that ordinance on first reading to move to second reading.
Okay.
The last thing that I have on the agenda for Monday evening is item 17A. So you may recall in 2022, we had done an amendment to our procurement manual that allowed for further edits to be made to the procurement manual, to be done so administratively and then provided to the city commission for information purposes within 60 days of that effective date, and also filed with the city clerk. So we have done some amendments. Bethany Owen, our procurement officer, is here with us this evening to answer any questions on this, but briefly what those changes were. We require our employees to do a related party disclosure form that lets us know if they work or they have family members that are involved with any businesses that we may also do business with. That's part of making sure we don't have conflicts of interest and we're not doing anything that's unethical. Normally, we would have them do that every year. What we're changing that to at this point, because that's somewhat ineffective. I mean, those changes rarely, if ever, happen. We require them to fill out that form when they come into a position of employment with us, and we are going to eliminate that they do this each fiscal year, and instead, upon being hired, they will fill this out, and then thereafter, upon accepting a position of influence or one that has purchasing authority. So that helps us make sure that we're not just pushing paperwork here, we're doing it when it's actually appropriate to do it. We're also adding within our asset control procedures, we had a unique situation. Bethany, I believe it was Lake Ashton that did the donation this year. So Lake Ashton had purchased some pretty high-end water fountains, as I recall, that had like the dog bowl piece to it for their dog parks, and they didn't have a need to install them, and they wanted to donate them to the city of Winter Haven. Well, we have policies that speak to how we go about donating our own stuff out, like used vehicles or equipment we no longer have a need for. We can donate those to other cities or to nonprofits, but we didn't have a policy that spoke to how can the city receive donations of such equipment. So we have added language within that, within the procurement manual that allows us to accept donations from outside groups or organizations and a process for that. So these items are just being provided to you for informational purposes of really 2 minor changes that we've made to the procurement manual to ensure that we're being as efficient as we can and ensuring compliance with all ethical expectations for the organization.
Any questions? All right. So that completes the agenda. So we'll go back and you have it for the strategic pillars.
Yes, sir. And I appreciate you allowing us to present on this tonight. I do want to share with the commission one I think, very positive piece of information, and we will provide you a separate report that highlights this. But you may recall, we do our process for community surveying twice a year. We do it in June and then also in the November, early December timeframe. And you've certainly seen that during the strategic planning retreat last year. We have just gotten the results from our surveying that was completed at the end of 2024. And I'm happy to report that in all of our pillars, quality of life, community safety, infrastructure, responsible government, environmental stewardship, and economic sustainability, we saw increases in customer satisfaction in every one of those from June of 24 to December of 24. So I think that's, it really depends on who you're surveying and what their personal perspectives are, but that's something to hang your hat on, that we're doing some good things and we're getting the word out, and people are responsive to that. Overall satisfaction with the organization is at 94%. That is our rolling average. It was at 94% in December as well. So again, a very high mark for the city of Winter Haven, and as elected officials, something I think you should be very, very excited about. We'll put together a full packet report and share that with you, but I shared some of that information earlier today with the leadership Polk class that was spending time here in Winter Haven, and certainly wanted to make sure you were aware of that as well. I think one of the things that had come up, and Katrina, I'm going to ask for your intel on this because I don't know that I have it handy. Maybe I do. I think you had mentioned that Commissioner Mayor Pro Tem Yates at one point had asked about the number of respondents that we're getting on those surveys when we do it. We're averaging over 500 respondents each time that we're doing those surveys. So we're getting, certainly in a community of 60,000 people, that's a small number, but it's still I feel a statistically significant response that we're getting. So I feel comfortable with that.
Do we know how many of those might be repeat responses versus brand new responses?
Can you speak to that, Kat?
They work to get new responses each time, but they certainly can't prevent repeat. But the way that they serve the survey out, they're trying to get unique ones, and they do look at digital fingerprints to ensure that in each data set, they're not using any repeats. So we might have a repeat from June to December, but that person will not have two surveys in December. Does that make sense? And then their goal for city populations of 50,000 to 100,000 is 400 responses to be able to do a statistically valid analysis. So we're over that.
So is that normal? Are we seeing normal response levels for these type of surveys compared against other communities?
Yes.
I would say yes, you are, for this approach that we use. Certainly normal within what the expectation is. There may be other communities that are falling below that. So let me clarify my response with that. And we can ask that question of them. If you were to do a different approach to surveying, if you were to do a very formalized research study on this, you're going to do many different approaches to it. And your sample group, you're going to try and get it as large as you can. And certainly we could do that. There's a significant cost with that in terms of time and financial resources. And there may be a point in the future where we want to look at doing something like that. But starting off to ask the question, what do our citizens feel? I'm quite comfortable with presenting and standing by the results that we're getting from how Zen City is working with us. With that said, we have done, I believe now, 4 presentations to the City Commission, 3 or 4 on the various pillars. These are not really highlighting the action strategies, but giving a sense of what are we doing in some of those specific areas. You certainly, I think you've heard from responsible government, community safety. We had a presentation on quality of life in December, and so I'm happy to present this evening Tanya Ayers, who is our Director of Safe Neighborhoods, and Brittany Hart, our Director of Public Works, to share with you just some recent things that have occurred within the environmental stewardship pillar. This is one of our highest scoring pillars in our surveying efforts. Again, this is not just about our lakes, but this is waste management, this is land use planning, this is sustainable practices, urban forestry, so many different things that we do. So with that, we'll take about 15 minutes of your time, and I'll hand off to these individuals to present.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Tanya and I are going to provide an update this evening on our environmental stewardship pillar and the work that is being done to wisely care for our natural resources for our current citizens as well as our future citizens. We're going to give updates on a number of projects. We are going to talk about the Lake Silver revetment, the Lake Conine Nature Park, our household hazardous waste collection event, our urban forestry efforts and what we're doing for that program, as well as an update on the Hurricane Milton debris collection.
Good evening, City Commissioners. I am going to start our presentation with the Lake Silver Revetment Project. So this project was created to address erosion on the western shoreline of Lake Silver. A primary cause for this erosion was a railroad that was put in along the lake back in the late 1800s. The construction of the railroad created an unnaturally steep slope, making the shoreline prone to erosion. A secondary cause has just been, over the last 100 years, natural erosion from storms and runoff, and then recreational activities that have increased on the lake. The old railroad bed is now the Chain of Lakes Trail and the area north of MLK Park, which is both are threatened by the ongoing erosion. In 2022, the downtown CRA funded an engineering study to address the erosion. Several concepts were reviewed. The final design consists of resloping the shoreline and constructing a 460-foot rock revetment. The great thing about this design is that it absorbs the wave energy rather than reflecting it back to other shorelines and causing further erosion. The project was awarded to Shore Builders for just under $330,000. $250,000 of that was paid through assistance from Representative Killebrew through the Florida Wildlife Commission. The project is expected to complete in January.
And Commissioners, I don't know if you've had a chance to see this, if you've been down in that area. This contractor's moving extremely quickly through there. And you could see from the video, they sloped that, they put down a smaller size rock, and then this larger kind of boulderish rock that you see is the final product. But it's been a fascinating process to watch. We're doing some additional improvements down there adjacent to the skate park that we started before the revetment project, and then we paused it because we needed to be in there with heavy equipment, and that was part of the organization and coordination of it. That is, when this is done, that section of the trail will get redone, and then that former pavilion that we took down, we have some additional skate elements that Ms. Scoobin and others helped us acquire from the city of Lakeland that will be placed there as well. So it expands some recreation at the end of the day as well.
All right, so our next project is the Lake Conine Nature Park, which you guys have heard so much about over the years. So the Lake Conine Nature Park is a wetland treatment project that helps clean up the stormwater from a 400-acre watershed before it flows into Lake Conine. Before this project got started, all of the stormwater from that acre, that watershed flowed through a ditch along Motor Pool Road straight out to Lake Conine and was never getting any treatment. Now that water enters the ditch and then flows through a pipe that runs underneath Palm Drive, and where it enters into our first wetland cell or pond, and that's where it starts to get really the most treatment. Most of the pollutants are captured there. From there, it flows through the rest of the cells and the ponds and continues to be cleaned as the plants absorb the nutrients and the sediment settles out. This project, you can see the process happening from many of the newly constructed pedestrian bridges, which you can see on your screen at this time. It has a weir system which helps the water go from one cell to the next and just moves throughout the whole park. With this project, we are able to remove about 30,000 pounds of nutrients each year, which ultimately is giving cleaner water to go into Lake Conine and improving the water quality there, as well as the water quality of the downstream lake, which is Lake Smart. So whenever the treatment project was designed, everybody was thinking about the future recreation in mind. And on top of these berms, the park is going to feature a mile of trail system, which will be half paved trail as well as half natural trail. There will be a fishing pier. There will be a kayak launch so people can kayak within Lake Conine. There will be a connection to the Chain of Lakes Trail along Motor Pool Road. So giving a lot of access to this park and letting the residents of Winter Haven explore the wildlife and learn more about what we have going on here. And this project would not have been possible without a number of funding partners. We had Polk County BOCC helped commit funds to this project, the FDEP, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, the Southwest Florida Management District, and then there was a number of FERDAP funding as well as legislative appropriations that went into both the water treatment part of the project and the recreational amenities.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question about this one? First of all, I want to say how happy I am to see this finally coming to fruition. We've been talking about this for years, and it's so cool to see the pictures finally happening, and I'm just thrilled. But, you know, in our effort to plant 100,000 trees, which I told you I was going to ask you about, this looks like a great place to have a bunch of cypress trees.
We planted a bunch out there.
You did already?
All those little trees you see,
Okay.
those were, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
that's
when
good.
they built the ponds, that's part of the treatment is the vegetation that goes in. So where you see those little kind of seedlings popping up,
Okay.
that's a lot of what went in during the wet.
Okay. I just noticed there was a lot of open space that would make great tree locations. So go ahead.
There
Good
is a
job.
lot of space that makes great tree locations. We're working on all the educational signage that people will be able to review as they come into the parks. And it talks about the cypress trees, the sweet magnolias, the red maples, the sweet gums. There's a variety of tree species that are planted out there or are going to be planted out there. And so we have a lot of planting happening in that location.
Thank you.
Okay, Household Hazardous Waste Day. So since 2007, the city of Winter Haven has been partnering with Polk County Solid Waste and Keep Winter Haven Clean and Beautiful to host an annual Household Hazardous Waste Day. The most recent event was held on Saturday, December 7th at the Advent Fieldhouse. 225 citizens participated in the event. Items collected include 20 fire extinguishers, 47 propane tanks, 51 gallons of paint, 53 large batteries. We're talking things like car batteries, 172 fluorescent bulbs. And I'm just going to stop right there and say that in my many years of being a code enforcement professional, these are the kind of things that we typically see on abandoned properties and on the side of the road. And so I'm so excited for events like this that allow people an opportunity to properly dispose of these items. So they're not contributing to causing harm to our neighborhoods and our environments. So then we have 178 tires. Now to put that in perspective, that's equivalent to tires on 44 cars and a motorcycle. It's a lot of tires. But the biggest one to put into perspective here is 150 gallons of motor oils, antifreeze, and gasoline. And so the EPA says 1 quart of motor oil poured down a storm drain can contaminate 1 million gallons of water. That's a year's supply of water for 50 people. Even more startling, 1 gallon of oil can create an oil slick over 8 acres of water. 6 gallons of oil is enough to cover the entire surface of Lake Silver. So I want to say that these events this was a very successful event, and they're very important to make sure that these items don't wind up out there harming our environment.
How often do we do these events? Is it once a year?
Yeah, this partnership is once a year. We hold it in conjunction with Polk County Solid Waste and Keep Winter Haven Clean and Beautiful. But the Polk County Solid Waste has these kind of all over all of the communities within Polk County, and I believe they shoot for 6 a year.
How challenging would it be for us to hold additional, at least maybe one more in the summertime and then one more, like how challenging would that be?
I don't know that it would be an extreme challenge. It's getting the resources and the partnerships together. That is something that we are working on through a litter and illegal dumping mitigation plan right now. And as we work through that and get approval on that, we'll start to implement different strategies, which one of them includes holding additional collection events throughout the community.
And is an event like old appliances or anything like that, is that ever available, or is that something where residents really just need to either take that to the dump or put it, what about old appliances?
So right now, the way that we do old appliances is that's scheduled as a bulk collection. In that illegal dumping and litter mitigation plan, we have outlined an idea of having a collection event, and maybe that's in the different quadrants. But as of this time, we don't have one that we advertise. That is, I'm not sure if that's something that you guys have done previously before my time here.
Yeah, we used to do the spring cleanup, but now, you just call it in. And really, Mayor Pro Tem, with appliances, being able to get that to a destination is tough. So we do a lot of that curbside, appliances, furniture, those types of things. So we're running those routes daily. And it's based now on a call-in service. So you can get it to the curb, call us, we'll come pick it up. One of the things, Brittany, can you talk about the technology disposal that goes on with this as well? Would you mind commenting on that?
Yes. So with this household hazardous waste collection, we're obviously collecting things like oil and paint and those various things, but it's also the e-waste, the TVs and the computers and those type of things. And they had over a 30-yard roll-off filled with electronic waste that was disposed of through the event. However, the county goes through that. The county partners with us and does all of the counting, thankfully, and they are still working through counting how many TVs are thrown away, how many fax machines, how many computers were all thrown away, so they can provide us those numbers in the future. But there's a lot of e-waste that went through this program as well.
Great, thank you. Well, I'd love to see an additional event if we can make that
Certainly,
happen.
we can pursue that. And of course, if anybody has these things and you don't want to, you're cleaning out your garage springtime, you can always take it to the landfill as well. They have a household hazardous waste at the main, the Castro Road point that you can take those items to, and they're wonderful to work with there. But we can certainly explore another time to do that.
All right, so urban forestry. So we are wrapping up all of the priority 1 tree removals and prunings, which were outlined in our urban forestry master plan, and that was adopted by this commission in late of 2023. The priority work included 43 tree removals and 31 that needed to be pruned, and those were decided on classifications because they were classified as high risk for various reasons. Either they were dead or they were severely diseased. We saw relatively minor tree loss during Hurricane Milton of the city trees, and we feel that was due to the pruning and the removals that had occurred of those priority 1 trees. So we are moving on. We're going to start the priority 2 removals and working through that list. Other big things we've done in our urban forestry that I think are important is the city updated a lot of our landscape ordinances, which hadn't been done since the early 1990s. And that updated focused on protecting our urban forestry and adding some clear definitions into what that really meant. It also focused on establishing tree protection requirements during construction and then creating a process to mitigate removals of protected trees. I think a number of you were at the ribbon cutting at the Winter Haven Recreation and Culture Center, the groundbreaking at the Winter Haven Rec and Culture Center. I'm moving it along really fast in my mind.
Real fast.
But you would have seen there was a number of beautiful oak trees on that property that were being protected during construction. And so when there is a ribbon cutting of that project, they will have a beautiful landscape full of very mature, healthy trees because we had taken steps to mitigate their removal. So now there's also penalties for unauthorized removal of trees. We're still working with a consultant for a second update, which will address some things like the landscape buffers and tree canopy requirements on private property. But we'll be bringing that to you in the coming months as we work to develop that. So as we moved from the priority 1 removals, our priority 2 removals were a little bit higher. And so we realized that in order to keep this plan moving, we needed some additional help. And we advertised an invitation to bid for urban forestry services and received 3 responses. We have executed agreements with Summerall Environmental to help with those priority 2 removals and some of the pruning work that we need, as well as an agreement with Evolve Professional Landscape to plant new trees and then help maintain those as they get to that growing in period. So this map on your screen is showing available planting spaces within city properties and city right-of-way. So this is city-owned facilities, properties, right-of-way. And the colors represent the sizes of the different types of trees that could be planted in that area. So some of them could accommodate very large trees. Some of them can only accommodate very small trees. And so there's a range there. We have just over 4,200 spaces available for plantings. And according to the plan, we need to plant about 150 to account for a no net loss. And our team's goal is more in that 300, 350 range each year. We're planting trees from an approved species list. There's about 75 trees on that list. So we're working through that list to make sure that we're diversifying the canopy. And we're starting to work with Evolve to identify exactly which neighborhoods we're going to plant in. We're looking and starting around the Polk State area, which was that 205 number, and working our way outwards. But we're going to start identifying the exact neighborhoods, which trees are going to be planted there and when, so we can start those notifications.
So if I could just jump in for a second for Commissioner Dancer's benefit, I know we talked earlier today about 30 million trees or whatever the number was.
1,000
So,
4 years.
you know, and I don't want anybody to say, oh my gosh, we don't have room to do that. I mean, we have 4,200 thereabout spaces on city property. That's in our right of way. That's in our park facilities. To accomplish your goal, of trying to get to 100,000 trees. That's why events like our tree giveaway, which Brittany will talk about in a moment, are so important, because that is what helps get trees planted on the private property. Our canopy, our urban canopy isn't just our spaces, it's everybody's spaces. So we really want to try and fill the balance of that tree planting goal with the help of our residents and our businesses.
Beautiful.
Can I say something? Yeah. Are you working with utilities so that those do not get, on top of pipelines and things like that?
And that's really what drives this in being what a lot of people might consider a low number at 4,200. And we're a 42 square mile community. That doesn't seem like a lot. Well, you have to contemplate, where can you put this that it's not going to be under a power line, over top of a utility line, where it's not going to be a tree that we plant today and in 5 years have to take out.
Thank you.
Yes, and like I mentioned, we're still working with a consultant for our second update to those landscaping ordinances, and one of them includes looking at is the current way that everything is written is no tree within 12 foot of any utility the way that it needs to be? Do we need to make all changes to that? So the 4,200 spaces really doesn't seem like a lot, especially whenever we have lofty goals set for us at 100,000 trees a year. So we are the things like updating our landscaping codes and making sure that we are prioritizing what it looks like on private development different. But then that Arbor Day giveaway. So we're celebrating Florida Arbor Day on January 18th, and we are going to be having a tree giveaway for that. We are going to be picking those trees up next week. We're giving away 200 3-gallon trees, so not baby ones, but not fully mature ones in South Central Park. The residents can come, they can talk with us, they can get some education on pruning and planting, as well as right tree, right space, and kind of what was going to work best for them at their homes. And then they will be able to take one of those free trees away. We've also submitted our application for the Arbor Day Foundation to continue as a Tree City USA. This will be our 32nd year as a Tree City. And this would, if we receive it, be our 17th year as a growing city and receiving that growth award. And so that's really exciting and just a commitment to that work we've done with our urban forestry. And then lastly, an update on the Hurricane Milton debris collection. So this video is flying over where we have been dropping all of that debris since October. This is right next to the motor pool site. You can see all of our garbage trucks in the back for scale, and these piles are huge, 25 foot or so, and just all of the debris. This is being monitored for us through our contract with Polk County for debris hauling services. The city began debris hauling on October 12th, which that storm came through, and just 1 or 2 days later, we started debris hauling. Tucker Paving was amazing. They called and said, hey, we have trucks that aren't busy, and do you need them? And we said yes. And so our trucks were collecting it, and then they were dumping them into Tucker Paving trucks, and they would go to the landfill and sit for quite a few hours. I was looking at load tickets and trying to figure out how long they were there, and they were sitting for 2.5 hours. We were able to collect 85 loads with their assistance, and that was about 120 tons. And just the work that we got done with Tucker wouldn't have happened if we were having to send our trucks, let them sit for 2.5 hours at the landfill, go back out, do collection, and then back to the landfill. We would have gotten maybe 12 to 20 trips in that time period. So we were able to haul 85 loads with the assistance of Tucker Paving, and that was spun up really well. The landfill was willing to coordinate with us. They were accepting letters that they would address the fees to the city of Winter Haven if it came in the Tucker truck. So there was a lot of good collaboration that occurred to allow us to start collecting. The county didn't start debris hauling until the 16th. So we got about 4 or 5 days on everybody else with that collection process. And to date, countywide, there has been 20,000 loads collected. I know at some point somebody had said that they felt like this hurricane didn't have such an impact as other ones, Hurricane Ian previously, but 20,000 loads, we are very close to what we were collecting during Hurricane Ian. To date, the county has collected just over 730,000 cubic yards of debris. So once that hauler came in, they stopped quantifying it in tons and went to cubic yardage. And of that, the city has collected right at 1,100 loads and 21,000 cubic yards. So just tons of collection. Most of that collection here, that is the collection of our Winter Haven team, our trucks. That is not the assistance of the debris haulers, even though we have seen them coming in a little bit later in the game. As of today, we have officially completed 3 passes of collection. We have collected all of the debris that was out. We started with a second collection, which was the debris in the bags and the commingled items. And then we did one third pass of collection, and we have officially completed our Hurricane Milton collection. We are resuming normal operations of our debris collection and resuming our scheduled bulk collection. And so we're working with our communications team to make sure we're getting that message out. If we've resumed normal operations, we're back to scheduling our bulk, and we're sending out mailers and things to remind them of that, as well as our recycling goals. So just very excited to bring that in for a landing and a closure of that project. And so with that, that is our environmental stewardship update. Really exciting stuff. We've talked about the Lake Silver revetment and how that project will be completed this month, the Lake Conine Nature Park, and the work that our parks team is doing out there to make that a recreational space, our household hazardous waste collection event, and just how much of a success that was, our urban forestry operations, as well as that Hurricane Milton debris collection. And we're already starting to plan for next hurricane season, even though I hope we don't have one. So if you all have any questions, we're here to answer them.
I have a question. So we made, you said, like 3 passes. How has the county itself fared? Because I've been getting calls, and I actually went and looked, and it was storm debris, but it's in the county. It's not in the city limits of Winter Haven.
So, different communities kind of approach this in different ways, Mr. Mayor, and certainly I give a tremendous amount of credit and kudos to Brittany Hart and the city's public works team to be ramped up with all of our trucks pre-approved for hauling and having a site to take things to ahead of the game. She said day one we were out picking up because we have the resources to do that. Some of the communities don't have that resource. They don't have their own solid waste operations, so they're completely dependent upon the county's support. The city of Lakeland does not join in on the county contract, the county-wide contract. They have their own private hauler, and they were successful, where they could get to. But a lot of in Lakeland, they were delayed because of just the water issue that they were dealing with. That's the report that I've gotten from my counterparts there. We have tried to coordinate as much as possible with Brittany's counterparts at the county when we have folks within our utility service area, but they're not within our garbage collection area. So Country Club Road, MJ just worked with a resident 2 weeks ago, I think it was, that had some concerns about the amount of debris that was out there on Westlake Hamilton Road, on Crump Road. And so we were able to quickly get on the
Just
phone.
called one of the streets that I got a call from.
Yeah, so we got a hold of the county folks that are responsible for that contract to make sure that they had an awareness of that, and I believe they've already begun addressing that. But I have no doubt that there are probably communities within Polk County that it's going to take a little while to get to still.
Yeah.
Just that whether it's because of standing water that was there for several weeks afterwards. I think it's kind of a mixed bag throughout the entire county, though.
Okay.
But quick question on the urban forestry part. How are our trees doing on Central? The
cypress trees,
cypress trees, yeah.
excellent. I'm going to knock on wood as I say that. This is something MJ and I, we talk about regularly as we walk through downtown. Right tree, right place. We had the state forester help us identify what's the right tree to put in there. They were put in mid-fall of 23 as we were wrapping up that project. We did not see a lot of defoliation of those cypress trees at all, really. I mean, a little bit, see a little color change when it's the cold snaps that we've had, but they are holding up extremely well. We're seeing growth on them. So I think that's a good case study of don't just go with what you think looks right. Get the experts in to really help identify that.
Thank you.
So our next presentation, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, will be in February, and we'll be talking about infrastructure. Those include things like roads and bridges, our sidewalks and pedestrian facilities, certainly water and sewer, and Gary will be Gary Hubbard and his team will be a big part of that with everything they have going on. Our vertical structures, fiber, lighting, all of those different things. So we'll be working on that starting tomorrow. We have our first kickoff meeting internally to begin putting together that presentation for you, and look forward to bringing that to you in February.
All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Because it's kind of under that same category as well. And I didn't want to wait any longer to bring this up. So we attended the TPO meeting a couple weeks back and heard a presentation from Sheriff Judd as well as Superintendent Hyde. And one of the things that they are really pushing for, and there's multiple things, but the one that really stuck out to me and really I think should be an easy thing to do and accomplish, is that we need to have landing pads for school bus drops on all new communities. So how difficult is that to get put into our code, and how quickly can we make that happen?
So I'll look to Eric to weigh in on that, but I heard that presentation, and you hear about students that are standing roadside in the road, in the right of way, that there's not a landing pad, a bench, any type of safe zone for students to be in dark. I don't know if any of you had seen any of the footage that Superintendent Hyde had provided to Ryan Kordek. It came out earlier this week that showed some of the video footage.
Yes.
It was shocking,
Yeah.
absolutely shocking what is in there with people passing school buses and kids that are getting ready to cross the street in the dark to get onto that school bus. So one of the things that certainly came up was, can we require something like that? So Eric, can you speak to how we go about doing that?
Yeah, so in the Unified Land Development Code, we certainly can require private developers to make improvements within certain subdivisions and within the road rights of way that are consistent with the impacts of their development. So that's something that can be written into code. The key component of that is we would need to be able to coordinate very closely with the school district, with the school board, and particularly their transportation department, because we wouldn't be the experts on where to put those. They schedule their routes often based on picking the students up in the front of the subdivision on the public road, which may be a city road, which may be a county road, which may be a privately held roadway. And so that would be the key component, is make sure there are elements of that coordination that we would have to, if it's a county road, for example, the county would have to have similar requirements in their code requiring those types of improvements. But it's certainly something we can look at.
So I guess my concern is I've said this before up here, so I apologize for saying it again, and we're part of it, but I don't want to over government this problem. I mean, if it's a problem now and the developments that continue to come on. So I mean, can we not say, it's required and then go through X, Y, and Z steps to at least, like, if we can go ahead and get it in there and get it in place, then we can go, as that development comes about, we can then go to the school board or the developer can do and go through that process, if you will, that you just mentioned. I just don't want to, like, 12 months from now, we're still trying to work with, we got to cut the tape out and we got to get it done.
Yeah, I understand. I think the concern is that we wouldn't want to put in an improvement in the wrong place and then it never be used.
Well, that's fine, but like I said, I mean, if it's not, we can debate that issue, after the fact. We've got to get something in place that says, hey, Mr. Developer, you've got to have a landing pad. We may not know where it is, but you got to have one. And you've got to go through that process to get it done.
I have a question. Do we still our city have to get a permit through the county in order to do things like that if it's county property? Especially in roadways?
In county right of way? Yeah, they would be the permitting agency.
Yeah, okay.
Good point. Thank you for bringing that up. That was a very telling presentation that Sheriff Judd and Superintendent Hyde did. Very eye-opening.
So what are they doing in the immediate?
The presentation, Commissioner Dawson, was really about safety for our students and an update on the stop bar cameras that they've put in and how they did their warnings for the first month of that, and then how many citations they're writing from that point forward. And that's the biggest concern for it. When they place, as I understand it from speaking with the district in years past, their efforts to locate the school bus stops, they try and do that as they're planning them out. We need to pick so many students up from here, there, or wherever to make sure they're in the most appropriately lit and safest places. Certainly there's challenges with that, but the biggest concern is the inattentiveness, the lack of people just abiding by the law or paying attention to our students that are out there. One of the other things that they brought up is the continued, I would say, displeasure with the state legislature for the mandated changes in school start times and what impact that may have ultimately on the time at which students, in this case, I believe the biggest area of concern is the elementary school students who could be standing out there at the earliest possible time. And that is a big concern and something that the school district is still advocating against, that we need to not have that requirement. It doesn't necessarily provide what may meet certain benefits that they're hoping to achieve at the state level. It creates some ancillary negative impacts that we're very concerned about.
Could we potentially get some language from the school board and what that might need to look like, and what we need to send to our state representatives to inform them that this is a impending big issue?
So we met Katrina Hill, who handles a lot of our legislative communications. She met with myself and Deputy City Manager Carnevale yesterday. We've begun crafting our political, our legislative platforms at the state and federal level to present to the commission here relatively quickly, based on items that our department directors through their professional associations have brought forward, items that you have brought forward. And we closed that meeting with the notation of we need to get with Polk State College, we need to get with the Polk County Public School District and other partners that we have in the community to identify what their legislative platforms and priorities are for the coming session, so that we can advocate on their behalf for those very items. So yes, sir. Short
I mean,
answer.
I'm ready to fire out the emails. I just want to be sure that the content of that email is, accurate and and relatable to the city of Winter Haven as well.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? If not, motion to adjourn.
So move.
We adjourn.